The date is the 3rd of September in the year 1260. Darkness has fallen upon the land. Here, in the valley of Jezreel, the air is thick with anticipation. It carries the scent of dry earth and the distant murmur of men and horses. A small spring, known as Ain Jalut, or the Spring of Goliath, whispers in the quiet of the night. It has given water to travellers for centuries, but tomorrow it will bear witness to something else entirely. It will see blood. The world had watched in horror as the Mongol storm rolled westward. It was a force of nature, relentless and unforgiving. Their conquests were not merely victories, they were events that reshaped the map and erased cultures from existence. When the great city of Baghdad fell in 1258, a beacon of learning and culture for 500 years, a shockwave of despair travelled through the Muslim world. It felt like the end of an age. The caliph was killed, libraries were burned, and the Tigris River was said to have run black with the ink of countless books. The story of the Mongol shadow begins long before it reached the gates of Egypt. A man named Genghis Khan united the warring tribes. He forged them into a single, disciplined force, a nation on horseback. This was not just an army. It was a people in motion, a storm of iron and fire moving outward in every direction. Their advance was methodical and brutal. Cities that resisted were razed to the ground. Populations were massacred as a deliberate policy of psychological warfare. Their horsemen were the most skilled in the world, firing arrows with deadly accuracy at full gallop. By the mid-13th century, this tide had reached the heartlands of the Islamic world. The old powers of Persia swept away in a matter of years. The great centres of Islamic civilization, once beacons of science, art and philosophy, now lay directly in the path of this seemingly unstoppable force. With Baghdad reduced to a smouldering ruin, Hulagu Khan did not rest. He turned his armies west toward the fertile lands of Syria. Leading the vanguard was the general Kitbu Kha. He entered Damascus in 1260, not after a bloody siege, but after the city's leaders chose to surrender. But then, destiny intervened. A messenger arrived from Karakoram. The great Khan, Mongke, was dead. He had to return to the Mongol heartland. He would withdraw the bulk of his massive army, leaving only about 20,000 men in Syria under Kitbu Kha. In Cairo, the news of the Mongol advance was received with a mixture of terror and grim resolve. The reigning Sultan, Qutuz, was himself captured in his youth, sold into slavery, and had risen through the ranks by his own skill and ruthlessness. As Hulagu's threatening letter arrived, the Mamluk court was divided. Some argued that resistance was suicide. In a dramatic act of defiance, he had Hulagu's envoys executed, their heads hung from the city gates of Cairo. This act was a declaration of war. But Qutuz knew he could not do it alone. He needed the support of the most capable and most dangerous Mamluk commander, baibars. Putting their personal rivalry aside for the sake of survival, Qutuz invited baibars back to Cairo, not as a subordinate, but as a partner in the coming war. Together, these two men, forged in the harsh world of the Mamluk barracks, began to forge a plan. They would march out of Egypt and meet the shadow head-on. In the summer of 1260, the Mamluk forces mustered outside Cairo, a magnificent, imposing sight. The march began on 26 July. They moved out of Cairo, heading east into the Sinai Peninsula. It was Ramadan, a hard test. Crossing Sinai, they entered Palestine. After tense debate, the Crusaders agreed to remain neutral. They let the Mamluks pass unmolested along the coast. They dispatched their most trusted scouts, tasked with a perilous mission to locate the Mongol army and to gauge its size and composition. Their path led to the Jezreel Valley, to a small spring called Ain Jalut. There, by the waters of Goliath Spring, they would meet their fate. Understanding the Mongol way of war was the cornerstone of the Mamluk plan. They knew the Mongols were masters of mobile warfare. Their strategy often involved feigned retreats, a tactic designed to lure impetuous enemies into disorganized pursuit. Once enemy lines were stretched and broken, hidden Mongol reserves would emerge from the flanks, surrounding and annihilating the trapped force. However, the Mongols were not invincible. Baibars knew their limitations. Their light cavalry was less suited for sustained, grinding, close-quarters fights against heavily armoured opponents. The battle had to be decisive, fought on a single day, on ground that negated Mongol advantages. The choice of battlefield was not an accident of circumstance. It was a deliberate, strategic decision. Kutuz could hide the main weight of his army in these hills, completely invisible to the advancing Mongols. By securing the spring, the Mamluks ensured their own army would be well hydrated. It also created a strategic objective. The terrain would create a natural funnel, channeling the pursuing Mongols deeper and deeper into a space from which there would be no easy escape. In the final hours of darkness on the night of September 2nd, a profound stillness settled over the Mamluk camp. They murmured quiet prayers. Sultan Kutuz moved among his men, speaking words of encouragement. His presence was a source of strength. As dawn approached, a thin mist rose from the valley floor, shrouding the landscape in a ghostly veil. Down on the plain, Baibars and his vanguard made their final preparations, ready to play their dangerous part. The calm was about to be shattered. Destiny awaited at the spring of Goliath. As the sun climbed into the morning sky on September 3rd, the Mongol army appeared. The battle began not with a thunderous charge, but with a sound like the coming of a great and terrible rain. Baibars' force held its ground, absorbing the initial shock. Their heavy armor offered crucial protection against the deadly shower. After the first volleys, the Mongol horse archers began their classic maneuver, a constantly moving carousel of death. Baibars held his nerve. He needed Kitbukar to believe that his forces were superior, that the Mamluks were wavering. The Mamluk line did not break all at once. It began to crumble at the edges, then in the center. Then, as if overcome by panic, the retreat turned into a full-blown flight. Kitbukar, watching from his command post, saw exactly what he had seen many times before. He ordered a general pursuit. The entire Mongol force surged forward. They were riding headlong into a trap. The bait had been taken completely. Suddenly, the flight ceased. The prey had turned and bared its teeth. From his vantage point in the hills, Sultan Kutuz saw that the moment had come. He gave the order. The woods on the left erupted with soldiers. The woods on the right erupted with soldiers. Thousands of Mamluk heavy cavalry thundered down into the fray. The Mamluk lances, 18 feet long, hit with devastating force. The Mongol formation, stretched thin, shattered on impact. The hunters became the hunted, trapped in a vice. The aura of Mongol invincibility was shattered. The battle now descended into a brutal close-quarters melee. This was a fight of sword against sword, mace against armor. Despite the shock of the ambush, the Mongols did not break immediately. Kitbukar is in the thick of it, rallying his men. A Mamluk flank wavers and begins to fall back. The outcome hangs precariously in the balance. Seeing his left wing giving way, Sultan Qutuz acts decisively. He throws his helmet to the ground so his men can see his face. He shouts his war cry, "Wa Islama!" Oh, for Islam! The sight of the Sultan charging electrifies the army. Qutuz's intervention turns the tide. In the desperate melee, Kitbukar finally fell. His death is the final blow to Mongol morale. The collapse of the Mongol army was total. The battle turns into a rout. The Mamluks, sensing absolute victory, gave no quarter. They began a relentless pursuit. The Mongol army was effectively annihilated. The waters of Goliath Spring now ran red with the blood of the defeated. As the sun set on that fateful day, a quiet fell over the Jezreel Valley once more. They had done the impossible. They had met the Mongol storm head-on, and they had broken it. The immediate result of the battle was clear and brutal. The Mongol army in Syria had ceased to exist. The myth of Mongol invincibility, a weapon more potent than any sword, was shattered forever in the dust of the Jezreel Valley. The Mongol westward expansion came to an abrupt and permanent halt. Egypt, the great prize that Hulagu had coveted, was safe. The Mamluk Sultanate in Cairo became the last great bastion of Arab Islamic civilization. It became a sanctuary for scholars, artists, and craftsmen. The victory ensured the continuity of a culture, a faith, and a way of life. For the first time, a major Mongol field army had been decisively defeated in open battle, and it had been done by an army of former slaves. History is often seen as a great river, flowing in one inevitable direction. But sometimes the course of that river can be changed by a single stone, a single choice, a single day. The Battle of Ain Jalut was such a moment. It was a victory of preparation over arrogance, discipline over momentum, strategy over brute force. And so we are left with this place this spring. It bore witness to a moment when the world pivoted on the courage of a few thousand men. It reminds us that even after the clash of empires and the thunder of armies have faded, life continues. On a single day, in a single valley, such choices were made. And because of them, the shadow was broken, and a new dawn was allowed to rise. Remember that. History can turn on a single choice, and on a single day. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of ancient legends and warriors, check out our official store at bladesoflegendsofficial.com. You'll find apparel and gear inspired by the great civilizations of the past, made for true history enthusiasts. By supporting the store, you're also helping this channel grow and bring more legendary content to life. Dress like a legend. Live like a warrior.